DAZ Studio also comes with some basic animation tools. So let's take a quick look at those in this lesson. Over at the bottom of the screen here, we've got the animation timeline that we briefly looked at earlier, and another tab called Animate Light. And if we click on this, this is actually a paid plugin for DAZ Studio, but the Lite version is free and comes pre-installed. However, it's not quite as feature-rich as the paid version, but let's see what we can do with this anyway. Basically, this is going to allow us to quickly and easily apply pre-made animations, some of which we can see down here directly onto our characters. And we're currently looking at the dance category, in which we have various dance moves we can use. And you'll notice if we roll over any of these, we get a live preview of each move directly on our selected character. Although, because it is a preview and not yet applied to our model, the playback is a little bit jerky. But we can improve that by hiding any unnecessary geometry in our scene so the preview can calculate a bit faster. So if we pop the character hierarchy open, let's hide the heavier objects, like the hair especially, and the jacket. And now if we roll over these, it should play back a bit more smoothly. So we can go through these and find an animation we like, or we could come back here and choose a different category, which again is fairly limited in the free version. Let's try fighting. And we've got some cool boxing moves. And these animations are actually from motion capture, so they're pretty high quality as well. And when you find one you like, maybe this kicking animation, we just need to double click on that to apply it to the Animate Light timeline. And if we now play this, it's only playing up to this point here, so we just need to slide our endpoint to the end of that clip. And now we'll see that whole motion. Then, wherever we put our little playback marker on the timeline, we can come back down here and insert another animation clip, maybe from dance again. And we'll double click on this first one, and that gets added right where the playback marker was at the end of our kicking animation. So again, we'll just extend that endpoint out and play that. And now we transition between kicking and dancing fairly seamlessly. So it's a bit like motion clips in Cinema 4D. And if we want a bit more control over the animation, we can bake these moves to keyframes, which we can then manipulate over in our timeline. So all we need to do is right click in here and select Bake to Studio Keyframes. And we'll hit yes to that. And now if we switch over to the timeline, we can now see all of those baked keyframes in here. And if we play this through, there's our animation. And it does actually play back even smoother now that we've baked it down. So we could now bring our hair and jacket back, and the playback should be a lot better. All right, so now that we've got our keyframes, we can also fine tune our animation as well. So if we just move this up a bit to give ourselves a bit more space, we can also click here to bring up the dope sheet, similar again to what we'd find in Cinema 4D. And if we go into here and maybe grab the character's hip bone under properties, let's just tweak the animation a bit and maybe not have her walk so far forward when she goes for that kick, which is along the Z axis here. So we need to find that in our transform track here, down under the Z translate. And from these keyframes, we can see that the hip starts out in the center of our scene, then moves forward on the Z axis where she does the kick and returns back into the center. So to have her walk not quite as far forward, let's just get to the closest point to the camera, about there. And we'll bring this keyframe down on the Z axis, back toward the center, so she doesn't walk toward us quite so far, about there. Then we'll click and drag to select all of those keyframes in front of that position. Then right click and delete selected keys. And then, so that movement is a little smoother, let's just bring this up a tad to make that more of a curve. And we'll play that back. And just like that, she's no longer walking so far forward to do that kick. So while the animation tools here aren't quite as comprehensive as they are in Cinema 4D, you can still do quite a bit directly in DAZ Studio if you need to. So let's close this up for now. And if we want to remove all these keyframes and get rid of the animation, all we need to do is grab the root of our character and select all of the children. And down here in the timeline options, we can clear animation and just choose clear figure. And now if we rewind this and close this all back up, we can now hit play and all the keyframes have now been removed. And we can start fresh if we need to. And we can also animate our characters in a more traditional way as well, by first changing the mode down here to object, then selecting our character. We can actually animate or tween between poses. So let's grab some dancing poses, which will probably be easy to find under files instead of products. So back to dancing. Let's have our character start in this pose on the first frame of our timeline. And if we click this in object mode, that will set a keyframe. Then if we go ahead to the end of the timeline and grab another pose, like this crazy one here, that should now automatically add a keyframe for us, as you can see here. So if we now play this back, we animate from one pose to the next, which is a little slow for my liking. So let's grab this keyframe and right click. Then we can copy selected keys and we'll have this pose a bit sooner on the timeline on frame 60, where we can right click again and paste keys. And we don't need this keyframe anymore. So let's right click and delete selected keys. And now if we play that, the animation is happening a bit faster. And we can also keyframe our transform values too, if we want to fine tune our pose animation. So maybe we could grab her head here and hit Control F to frame up on that. Let's hand animate her smiling as she does her dance move. So we'll go back to frame 60 and we'll give her a nice big smile, which we can find over in the posing tab. And with the head already selected under pose controls, here is our smile control. So let's bring that right up and maybe this one as well. And there's a nice big goofy smile, which again should be keyframed automatically. So if we scroll back to the start, we have no smile. And as we play through, she starts smiling as she gets into her crazy dance move, like so. So that's how to manually animate your characters. Let's take a look at one more way to animate in Daz Studio. And that's by simply buying an animation preset from the Daz Marketplace. In this scene, we've got our Genesis 8 male character, and I've installed this guitar animations pack from the Daz store. And under the animations filter, we've got loads of pre-made animations inside there. Or if we go to files instead, we can see all the animations we have available in our library, not just from that particular product. And you might also notice that some of these animations start affecting your character as soon as you roll over them, while others, like this one here, don't. And that's because these animations with the preview are for Animate Light. So rather than being applied to the timeline here, those animations will show up in the Animate Light tab here, like we looked at earlier. So these animations correspond to what we have down here in this menu. And if you want the Animate Light animations on the animation timeline, you'll just need to remember to right click and bake the keyframes. But let's undo that and we'll apply one of the animations from our guitar product. And it's asking us if we want to extend the timeline to fit the whole animation. So we'll hit yes to that. And now if we go back to the animation timeline, here's our guitar animation baked in as keyframes. So let's play that back. And now our guy is playing a bit of air guitar. So you'd probably want to grab a guitar prop as well to go with this, which I'm sure you'll be able to find in the Daz store as well. And that is about it for animating your characters in Daz.